Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Raw Real Talks Fashion Edition. Welcome, welcome. Today has been an incredible, informative summit with empowering women all over the world that came here to really make an impactful, positive change for the world. And right now, I have the great honor of connecting with Stephanie Benedetto. There she is right now, and she's going to share about what she does in the world and her. Let me just grab it 1 second. Sorry. There we go.
Hello, Stephanie. Welcome.
Thank you. So glad to be here together.
Yes, me too. Me too. I love your energy. I love your heart. I love your passion. And when Mariama told me that we're going to be speaking, and I started listening to your talks and reading about you, I'm just completely lit up. It's an honor to have you here.
Well, I appreciate it, and the feeling is mutual. And these are hard, heavy topics that we're talking about, serious
Seriously.
issues. And so if we're not passionate about what we're doing, trying to change the world, then what are we doing, right? That's what keeps us going each and every day. That's for sure.
That is the truth. That is the truth. It's beautiful how you're aligned with your passion, with your purpose, and your desire to really elevate the consciousness, of the world, of sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, education, offering these resources to so many people. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself and the work that you do in the world to our community.
Happy to do so. So I actually come from a family background over 100 years in fashion, textiles, supply chain in New York, if the accent doesn't give it away. So I very much grew up around this industry, very passionate about how powerful it is, connecting people all over the world. But I disliked all the waste it produced, all those unused textiles, finished goods that traditionally just sit in warehouses collecting dust or being burned or sent to landfill. And I always say waste doesn't make sense for people and planet, but it makes zero sense for a business's profit, right? Waste is expensive. It's inefficient. So why are we allowing this to go on? And, I grew up around my great-grandfather, hearing the old school stories of the way he did business. He lived to a beautiful age of 105, and he would talk about it. He came over on a ship from Austria in 1896. He landed at Ellis Island, and he settled into the Lower East Side of New York. It was the original Jewish garment district, and he was an immigrant chasing the American dream. Came with nothing, right? He had to make a living for his family. And so what did he do? He'd find old materials and supplies nearby, old fabrics and furs and things immigrants had brought over on the ships with them, but they weren't using anymore. And he would repurpose them by hand into the most beautiful fashion garments. They sold to local customers, right? And it was an incredibly successful, profitable business. And so our vision with Queen of Raw has always been, how can we use technology to get back to the way my great-grandfather did business? He didn't talk about it as sustainability, but at the end of the day, right, that's what it was. For people, for planet, for profit.
For survival and for this beautiful circuitry that is going.
Yeah, exactly right. And of course, circular economy, sustainability, these words were not what he talked about, but it made business sense. And so, when we started looking at this issue of waste and supply chains, I didn't do the family roots. I wasn't on Wall Street as a corporate attorney, but I did end up specializing in fashion, technology, and sustainability. So I guess at the end of the day, we get back to our roots and who we are, and we want to change the world, right? So we started Queen of Raw as a marketplace, right? It was a platform for anyone from a student, maker, crafter, quilter to the biggest brands and retailers in the world to be able to buy and sell their unused textiles, keep them out of landfill, turn what would be pollution into profit. And we focused on that because at the time, so many incredible companies were doing awesome work with finished goods, thredUP, StockX, Poshmark, The Real, Depop, right? But nobody seemed to be paying attention to the B2B textile pre-consumer raw material waste. And we just felt like if we could solve for that huge opportunity, we could help inform down the chain, supply chain waste, right? And so that was our focus. It was a marketplace for the buying and selling of unused textiles. And we've been thrilled to see that because of everything going on in the world, it's grown pretty rapidly now into full enterprise software that we sell to the Fortune 500. Because if we can help the biggest in the world do better and empower the
Trickle
smallest
down.
creators, students, makers, and designers, then right, we've got a real circular system there.
Absolutely, you know, but I love how your business actually identified the dirty little, the big secret of the apparel industry as millions of yards of fabric of, you know, for various, you know, reasons
Sure.
you know, gets unused. You know, I too, like I'm a child of immigrants. My parents came and my great grandparent, they all came from Eastern Europe. And one of the things that they did come with is a sewing machine.
Ah,
And yeah, I shared this with Mary Geller earlier in our talk, that one of the things that, like, I couldn't wait until I was old enough. One of my birthday gifts was a sewing machine, and I learned at a very young age. We, you know, as a child of immigrants, we needed to utilize what it is that we had, not realizing that this is actually sustainability. This is the way of, but life was really fruitful, even though that we were immigrants. And well, I'm first generation, but it felt rich. It didn't feel, it was because we were utilizing those resources. So it's
it
incredible.
makes
It's,
business sense, right? And I can't wait till we get to
yes,
a world where we stop talking about this as sustainability and just talk about it the way good business is done, right?
correct. Correct. So how did you first, like, come to recognize this issue?
Oh, sorry, I had a little trouble with the mute.
Mhm.
So, you know, when I first started looking at the issue of textile waste, it was because I had a prior startup to Queen of Raw, and we invented leather alternative. And it hit a note in the market when innovation in textiles, sustainability was just getting talked about. But as we were making and selling this leather alternative all over the world to larger and larger
Mhm.
companies, I'd go to these factories, mills, and warehouses, and I'd see all this perfectly good stuff just sitting there in warehouses, going to be burned or sent to landfill. Before the pandemic, it was around $120 billion with a B of unused stuff.
Wow.
Through the pandemic, that number has grown to $250 billion in growing of unused raw material waste. And so I'd see this stuff sitting there, and I said, well, it's great that you're buying this new sustainable alternative from me, but we're still making something new. There's all this perfectly good stuff just sitting there. This is a supply demand mismatch. And how can we use technology to provide the bridge? And so that was what first exposed me to seeing firsthand the volume and the volumes of waste that sit all over the world. And this stuff, when I tell you, people always say we're in the scrapping business. And yes, we do sell scraps by the pound, but we also work with hundreds of thousands to millions of yards in mint condition, still sealed on rolls, right? One person's waste, another person's treasure. And so that's where it kind of was first exposed to this issue. And so to us, the obvious connect the dots was a marketplace. But at the end of the day, if you think about it, a marketplace to sell waste is great. Sorry. we have a,
That's okay.
we're in a very busy area.
It's the real world. This is
It's
raw, real talks. This is what
why
happens.
um, yeah, so when we were looking at this marketplace to sell waste, it's great. But if you think about it, it's kind of just slapping a band-aid on the problem. You got waste?
Right.
Here, go sell it, make money on Queen of Raw.
Mm-hmm.
Get to the root of the problem and help a business understand, why do you have it? What is it made of? Where does this sit? Who does it go to? And how can you not just resell it, but for things that can't be resold, reused, repurposed, right? Recycled, donated. And that's what led to a more holistic solution, which is what our software does for big companies to really do this. Because I think a lot of assumptions are made in circular economy that, one, it's got to cost you a lot of money to participate. And no, we've showed that it can actually save and make you a lot of money. And not only that, how do you actually do this automated and at scale around the world? And I want people to realize this isn't just about small pilot projects or eco-conscious collections, although they're very important, don't get me wrong, and that's how we show what the future is. How
Certainly.
do we get companies in the world to automate and scale this? And so that's really kind of where we started and where we hope to grow with all of you together.
No, it's incredible. And you know, your approach for solving a lot of these of it's not these issues, it's a major issue. It's the issue of our future, it's actually not even of our children, it's of our own future in the next few years.
That's what's so funny when we talk about textile waste and the damage that it does to people and planet. And I think people think of it as like, you're right, down the line, right? My children, my children's children. But it's actually happening, all these issues. I'll give you one fact that always resonated with me. If we continue at the current pace of textile production, by 2025, 2/3 of the entire world's population will face shortages of fresh water and be exposed to hazardous chemicals from textile production alone. And so you're exactly right. We're not talking about 100 years from now. We're not talking about 50 years from now. We're talking about today and on
2 years.
But I like to end on a positive note, because we can all talk about the scary statistics. But if you flip that, it also means that fashion and textiles have the power to solve the world's water crisis if we rethink how we do things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And your approach to solving these issues like leans, heavily with, utilizing technology. I actually have a degree in education and computer science, but I'm a hypnotherapist. This is
awesome.
We wear many hats, but so that I love the fact of how you brought technology in and you streamlined this, the way of sustainability. And blockchain has received, like we've heard a lot about blockchain over the last few years in the crypto arena, but how have you used blockchain, like this particular technology, to bring life into the dead stock markets, marketplace, and advance your initiative?
Well, just like that S word, sustainability, right? The B word, blockchain, means so many things to so many people, and your immediate assumption or understanding goes to cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. And what popularized it. But the underlying technology that allows those solutions to work, the blockchain technology, I think it is revolutionary and a game changer for supply chain and sustainability. Because the biggest challenge that we had as a business is when you're selling unused inventory in the digital space, right? How do you know what is it made of, right? Where does it come from? Who does it go to? How much is there? How do you provide integrity and authenticity?
Exactly.
Know who said what when. And that's important, not just because we are moving these resources to be resold, recycled, reused, and we want to know what we're actually selling, reselling, and recycling, but we also need to know as an end consumer how to engage with that and the environmental and economic impact that we have in participating in these kinds of solutions. And that's a big thing going on with the world, right? Thanks to all of you out there, there's demand, customer and consumer demand for more sustainable circular economy products. But there's also all the financial and legal regulatory regimes that are changing every day. And so these businesses now, whether in Europe or the US, I mean, you have to comply with regulations that require you to disclose this information. But how do you actually know how to measure it and report it? That's where we come in to really help businesses and consumers connect the dots. And blockchain does that. It makes it very quick, easy, and transparent.
I love that. That's the integrity behind it, the transparency of those components, the supply chain. But have you ever been, well, I'm certain that you were, but what do you do? How about that when you've been met with resistance to pulling back the curtain, with like how you were saying with these big companies?
Well, that's inevitable, right? I mean, we wouldn't be in the business of changing the world if we weren't met with resistance. When we first started looking at this issue of textile waste and inefficiencies in supply chain, it was in 2017, 2018. It was seen as a nice to have, but not a have to have. And we talked to the sustainability departments, and they're amazing. They are your brand advocates. They care. But a lot of times they were a newly created position. They didn't have a directive or weren't fully integrated into the business yet. And they probably didn't have a great budget to work with solutions. And so, really, I believe that in order to get these solutions to be adopted globally and at scale, you need to be able to have the CEOs setting the corporate agenda, the CMOs doing the marketing and the storytelling at the table, the CFOs who are dealing with these financial liabilities, the CIOs and COs and CTOs who touch the technology. You need all of them holistically to be participating and thinking about these kinds of solutions. So we would be knocking on the door like any good, tech startup in the fashion district in New York and just found the early adopters who got it. And so I think that was really powerful. And then having those use cases to show time, money, and resources saved and made. We just moved in the past few weeks for one Fortune 500 fashion brand. We just moved 10 metric tons of inventory from them, keeping it out of landfill. 95% diversion from landfill and incineration. And it saved them over $14 million in inventory and holding costs, right? So when you hear that, I tell these companies, this is a win-win-win. How do you say no to that, right? And I think that's really where the turning point was. Obviously, fast forward to today from where we started, and a lot of the original no's and people who didn't quite get it are coming back to the table because we've had a bit of luck in timing. But of course, the demand is there, the consumer demand and the business need. And it took a pandemic, but I think it woke all of us up to the urgency and what really matters, our health, our loved ones, right? And how we're doing as a business in the bottom and top line.
How we're doing as humanity as well.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? I mean, isn't that what it's all about also? It's like sustainability and living your best life. But so, I mean, that's incredible. So it's really like from the top down, it's educating the C-suites and having them. And now that these particular companies that you worked with that already made these changes, and congratulations to that company. That's incredible.
It takes all of us here together, right? In a platform is to be able to share the work we're doing. And I've always said it's got to be the top down, and it's also got to be the bottom up. And one of the first things we did, actually, for anyone out there with a startup, as we started our marketplace, one of the first things we did was create a demand. We had to show, and apologies for the background noise, we had to show that there was demand for this. And so we built this huge network globally so that we could show people actually wanted to consume this stuff. This isn't just waste. And we built a network of 500,000 users and growing all over the world to show the big companies why they should come. And we did it without spending a penny yet on PR marketing or advertising. So never doubt that the small actions you take can't change the world. We've saved over 1 billion gallons of water to date, and we feel like we're just getting started. So it's all of us together in this, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And I would imagine that, you know, the more a consumer understands about the product that they're buying, where it's being sourced from, where it's being developed, the people behind it, the transparency, the more aware and invested they become. They get it.
It's absolutely critical, but how do you actually know? And I hear from so many people, two things as an end consumer, right? One, you go to a store. How do you actually know what it's made of, where it came from, who it goes to, right? It's a lot of information. And the other question becomes, when you look at that product that is sustainably made and you look at another product, how do you, at that point of purchase, justify paying a lot more if you can't, right?
Exactly.
And so I've always said, when we talk about sustainability, two things. One is we developed leveraging blockchain and machine learning and algorithm. So now anytime you go to a store that is made with products with our dead stock, you can scan a QR code on your phone and see at point of purchase the water, chemicals, carbon emissions, waste, and dollars saved. So you can make a decision and a judgment call on how that aligns with your goals. And you can also start to track and measure and report the good work you're doing. I think that's important. It's got to be at your fingertips instantly. The other piece is when you go to buy that sustainable product, the good news about using dead stock and waste is you can actually find a like quality product at a steep discount, right, than other products. So it can be sustainably made, but actually the same price or sometimes even less. And I think that's really powerful too, to shifting this mindset of circular economy and sustainability so that it makes it even more appealing to the end consumers. They care, but that makes them care and make it a win-win-win.
That's brilliant, of scanning the QR code. I mean, you know, now there's always like, you know, like everyone always wants more gold stars, right? You know, when we were younger, we always want that gold star. So when we see what's behind it, of just like, it's beautiful. It just, that really does break down the curtain, you know, pull down that curtain. Are there certain brands, certain retailers, wholesalers that are out there that, you know, that you think are doing an incredible job, that's bringing more transparency to their supply chain and sourcing model?
And I love that you had this question because I'm going to have a bit of a controversial answer.
Okay, I love
always
open. I'm a New Yorker.
Yes, exactly. Again, controversy, no stranger. I do believe that any step forward, as long as it's forward and as long as it's not a lie or an intentional misstatement, is a step in the right direction. And there are a lot in the sustainability community who will push back on me. I am very public about the fact that I do work with fast fashion and with the biggest luxury retailers and brands in the world. And some people won't touch them because of the impacts that they have. I am of the opinion, and we're very clear about this, that if I can measure the impact that I'm having for them and that it is a positive, then there is something important about the work I'm doing for them. And at the end of the day, I built my platform to solve the world's biggest problems. And if you're not working with the world's biggest actors who are having that problem, what am I doing as a business? I'm not here to preach to the choir, although that's important. I want to solve this problem for the big problem makers. And so I've been very proud of a lot of this movement because although I would never condone, I'm a lawyer, greenwashing, intentional misstatement, or lying. If somebody is talking about trying to do something and making a step in the right direction and doing good work and putting their money in their mouth where it should be and their dollars towards it, I believe that that's better than those who aren't touching it or talking about it at all or doing anything.
Right.
And so I have been invigorated by all the positive work that's been going on in this space and the conversations that it's having, right? And the dialogue. So a lot of the brands have been doing incredible work. Now, that's not to say they don't have challenges too, but I've seen a lot of steps in the right direction, a lot of new circular products made out of their own waste, a lot of incredible new design production processes that cut down on the amount of waste and inefficiency, a lot more on-demand, local, custom, sustainable work. And I think that's the future supply chain and where we're going post-pandemic.
Oh, is that what you think? It's like the local.
I do think there's something about bringing production closer to the consumer to understand local consumer appetites, allow them to be part of that creation process, get that data and intelligence. Then you have less waste because you know what they want when they want it and you can deliver, right? Dead stuff and unused stuff helps you do that, helps you meet that demand while still growing as a business, which they need to. They've got stakeholders to answer to, their business. But here's how we could do it better.
That's brilliant. And can you illustrate for our viewers like how you connect a manufacturer who, for example, has like 5 or 10,000 yards of dead stock fabric in their warehouse with a buyer who finds value, interest in that fabric?
That's the beauty of technology,
connection,
right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of this was done the way my great-grandfather did 100 years ago. Good old pen and paper, maybe if you're better, Excel spreadsheet and phone calls, right? For the traditional jobbers or middleman to find a match and a buyer for that. And a lot of times in the old school way of doing business, you didn't know what happened to your stuff. Well, thanks to technology now, we have this network, 500,000 users and growing around the world, being of buyers and recyclers and donation partners and students, makers, crafters, quilters who can use these resources in different ways. And so leveraging machine learning based on the intelligent information about what that product is, where it sits, how much is there, we can match it to a buyer, recycler, donation partner, actually located near where the inventory sits. So we can cut down on the costs, right, and the carbon emissions of shipping and prioritize locally available resources. And so we match it to the buyer, the recycling partner, based on all those characteristics. And when the order is placed, we take care of everything from payment processing to the shipping logistics to get it to them. And so really trying to automate this, scale it, but simplify it for buyer, for seller, for all parties involved. And be able to aggregate all that information and help the businesses and end consumers know more.
That's incredible. So, your business has real applications today. And how do you see this business evolving, amplifying in the next, we were speaking about 2025 of what could happen, but yes, we're going to go now in the positive direction. We are pivoting now. How do you see this, the business evolving in the next 1 to 3 years up to 2025?
I've always said textiles touch everyone, everywhere in the world every day. It's our clothing, but it's also, look, the material on your chair right now, the inside of your car, the carpet under your feet. So my ultimate vision and goal has always been, how do we take this across industries and around the world? So now we're starting to work in automotive, aviation, computer electronics, food and beverage, consumer goods, because they touch textiles every day. But beyond just textiles, what are the other applications for this? For fashion, there may be trims, right? And other materials, packaging, plastic, all of that can be a part of this solution. And then in other industries, what are their big forms of waste that are commodities that can be commoditized, measured, and really understood. So really excited to see that and how we can connect the dots across industries and around the world.
Absolutely. Your audio, I don't know, it's going in and out.
Apologies. Let me see if I come a little closer.
Yeah. Huh?
Can you hear me now?
I can. It sounds, it's a little bit, but we could, as long as we hear the most important points, that's what's important. It's just the volume went a little bit lower. I'm not quite sure if it was, so finally, this is incredible, the work that you do. First of all, before actually I conclude the conversation, I do want to, I want to have our viewers, and for those that are listening today, how can one become more involved with the kind of work that you do and the educational resources that you provide?
We're all about democratizing access to information. And so you can go to queenofraw.com. Everything is open. You can reach out to me directly at Stephanie@queenofraw.com. And you can call me on 203-981-6993, because I'm nobody if not here in service to help support you and to make myself available any way we can help. We are here in all parts of changing this world. I'm doing this for my children. I want them to have clean water to drink, clothes that aren't toxic to wear, and a planet to live on. I'm not stopping to live.
Me too. Me too. Amazing. 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 So as we're coming to a conclusion, to end this conversation, tell us what it is that makes you raw, makes you real, and what makes you talk.
It's funny. As I did mention, I am doing this for my children, and I think about my great-grandfather. He came to America wanting a better world for his family, and so do I. That's actually why we called the company Queen of Raw, right? We went for it with the name. We knew it was a sticky name that hopefully you wouldn't forget. But at the end of the day, just like we're in the Raw Real Talks here, what is raw? What's real? What's at our essence? And how do we get down to that core, be you, and reach out and help everyone be kings and queens of their domain?
That's beautiful, Stephanie. Thank you so very much. And one day, your great-grandchildren, great-grandchildren will be maybe on a different platform, maybe not Instagram, maybe it'll be some satellite television that's going to be all over the world, that's going to be speaking about this brilliant movement that you have made, that your ancestors have begun. And may you continue planting that seed of inspiring so many and really creating change. Thank you. Truly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Many blessings. All the best. Thank you.